What's going on, everyone? Chris back again with episode 28 of What Could Have Been in Wrestling. This week I'm talking about the promotion everyone seems to love to hate on right now, for some good reasons. That's right, you guessed it. That being AEW All Elite Wrestling. This week's topic was suggested to me by a friend of mine named Kelly, and they wanted me to talk about what if tonykhan actually acted like a real boss and was able to prevent Brawl Out from happening. So let's just get right into that. I think the events of Brawl Out, which did take place in that September of 2022, I think obviously the events actually can be dated all the way back to the decision in 2021, where at Full Gear, Hangman Adam Page defeated Kenny Omega for the AEW title. At this point, Punk had just joined the company and seemed happy there at that point. Punk had his own match that night against Eddie Kingston. But despite obviously Hangman winning the title, it was clear that this company was being centered around Punk, and Punk was their biggest star and their biggest draw. Which remains true in my opinion to this very day. He's the biggest star AEW has ever had. Moving forward, obviously, I think everyone saw it was just a matter of time before Punk would be in that top spot and challenging for the title. And in 2022, going into Double or Nothing, that's exactly what happened when Punk was the number one contender for Hangman Page's world title. And this is where I think it all started. CM Punk's bitterness within AEW, and obviously everything that led up to him spitting his fire at All In 2022. Leading up to Double or Nothing and the Dynamite before that, at the Go Home show, Punk and Hangman did have a face-to-face interview with Tony Schiavone in the ring. And Punk kept it professional, and he spoke to Hangman about how everything seems to be coming full circle for him because they were in Las Vegas, the site of the pipe bomb, 11 years previous to that. And he told him, while I do respect you, he did tell him, I plan on coming in the challenger and leaving as the champion. Hangman took it in a totally different direction and seemed to go off script and went into business for himself and told Punk that he'd been waiting for this moment and that he was serious when he told Punk, I'm not just going to beat you, I'm going to destroy you. Punk kept that part, obviously, and was able to utilize that and sunk it back into his promo and kept it part of the angle and kept it within the story and didn't make it personal, unlike Hangman Adam Page was doing. And told him, look, I don't know why you're getting so mad. This isn't personal. This is just me wanting to win the title and be the top guy here and be the world champion. Hangman then truly, I think, went into business for himself again and went totally off script and basically blindsided Punk. And he told him, I'm not afraid of you, and I'm not afraid of getting fired. And he said to him, you think you're a top star, and you think being a champion is just what it means to be out here and have a great match. But he said to him, it's more than that. It's also how you conduct yourself in the back, and it's about those quiet moments when the light goes off, and you think nobody else is watching. And he told him, I'm not just fighting for this title, and I'm not just fighting to retain my title. He said, I'm fighting to save AEW from you. Because he said, I don't hate you, I almost pity you. Maybe try and hint at the back that there were other people that felt the same way, as guys like him and Eddie Kingston, But again, I think also Punk made Hangman insecure because even though Hangman held the belt, it was clear who the bigger star was and still is, I should say. So Punk still was able to keep it within the confines of the match and the angle leading up to their title match, and told him, look, it's not personal again, and he told him, at the end of the night, after I beat you, you're going to acknowledge me as the better man, and you're going to shake my hand. And he put his hand out to Adam Page and said, in fact, you're going to shake it right now. Hangman wouldn't do that, continued to spit his fire at Punk, and Punk then, to rile up Hangman, shoved him, and then Hangman fired back with a punch to the face, and that was the end of the segment pretty much. Right then and there, Tony should have taken action if he was a real boss and handled the situation appropriately. Yes, they had Double or Nothing coming up that weekend, and they had advertised a world title match between Punk and Hangman, but you know what? Things can change. And right then and there, if I was Tony, I would have either indefinitely suspended Hangman for unprofessional conduct and stripped him of the title, or I would have fired him right then and there, because Hangman is not... losing him would not have been detrimental to AEW's success. Because yes, I know he has a small pocket of supporters, but he's not a top draw. He hasn't done anything intriguing in his career outside of this angle with Punk and then his feud with Swerve. But Swerve is the one carrying the feud. I think we can all see that. And he's not, obviously, I don't even think he's a top performer in my opinion. When there's a part-time wrestler in WWE doing Hangman's move set better than he does. So, getting back on topic, if you're Tony, I think you fire Hangman, or at the very least suspend him indefinitely, and either way he's stripped of the title and the belt is vacant. You can do a last-minute pivot, and you can announce that the belt has been held up, and the new main event for the AEW title at Double or Nothing is now CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson. I think you go with Danielson for a couple reasons. Danielson had wrestled to a draw with the previous champion, Kenny Omega, on an episode of Dynamite. And then following Hangman Page's title win, he had turned heel. He had had a promo battle with Page where he mocked Virginia and mocked them booing hard work when he mentioned his title win at WrestleMania and then wrestling the very next day. And he said the fact that Hangman isn't ready to fight at all times as champion isn't cowboy shit, it's coward shit. And while I know the Blackpool Combat Club was a thing by then, I think you could have taken him out of that Anarchy and Arena match, and you could have slotted him, maybe even taking on the heel role for this match in terms of how the match would be laid out, considering I just referenced his heel turn that he had against Hangman, and you could have CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW title. That would have been a much more intriguing match, and I think had much more appeal to AEW fans and wrestling fans in general, who had followed Punk and Danielson from Ring of Honor to their feud in the WWE to now them fighting for the top prize in AEW. So I think obviously you could have taken that negative and turned it into a positive and had a must-see main event between two guys who always work well together and have great in-ring chemistry. And you could have prevented Punk's resentment towards probably Tony to a degree, and also to Hangman Page, because Hangman is now out of the picture and is no longer a problem. Also, if Tony hadn't done that, he still could have done something going into this next thing that happened, because now we're obviously moving up into the summer of 2022, getting closer to Brawl Out, where CM Punk, while champion, he did injure his foot that summer doing that stage dive in that intro with that six-man tag match when he teamed with the Ring of Honor Tag Champions FTR. And he had foot surgery to repair that injury. During that time, while he was out, Moxley had become the interim AEW champion. And on Dynamite, when Punk returned, there was set to be an in-ring segment between the two. But before that, Punk said he wanted to take care of some very unimportant business. And he called out Hangman Adam Page very randomly, unscripted, and said, "Come out right now and I'll give you your rematch." Punk sat down in the ring. Hangman didn't come out and said, after looking at his watch, said, "Oh." And then it looks like he's not coming out, and quoted Bryan Danielson and said, "That's not cowboy shit. That's coward shit." And he then went into business for himself, similar to Hangman. And I will reference that. And he said, "A little bit of advice I suggest you take. The apology needs to be as loud and as public as the disrespect was." And he said, "If you have a problem with me, come take it up with me." Hinting at a few things that I'm going to get into in a few moments. But obviously, had Tony done his job and suspended Page or fired him, Punk wouldn't have done that. And yes, while I know Punk went into business for himself there, he only did it in retaliation to Hangman being unprofessional first. So I don't think the fault lays at Punk's feet. I think it lays at Hangman still, and Tony for his inaction. So, going into obviously the Moxley and Punk feud, they fought title for title on Impact. Or not Impact, I'm sorry. On Dynamite the following week. And Moxley defeated him quickly in a squash match, which led to them building up a rematch for All Out. Leading up to All Out, Punk talked about his surgery and had some self-doubt, but then found new motivation when his trainer, Duke, came out. And obviously with All Out being in Chicago, Punk was positioned as the babyface for this, and was able to defeat Moxley, despite tearing his tricep, and reclaim the AEW title. And it seemed like things were moving in a really big direction, because MJF, who had walked out on the company in a work to shoot promo earlier that summer, returned that night as the devil himself made an appearance. And it looked like they were going back to their hottest feud they've ever had. And this time over the world title, it was going to be Punk versus MJF again. As MJF, obviously coming out on stage, made the hand gesture an indication that he was coming after that belt. That, unfortunately, never saw the light of day and was never able to come together, because that night at the press conference is when it all took place. CM Punk, at the All Out Media Scrum, basically let his feelings be known about everything that was going on. And when questions were asked, Punk said, "I'll start." And while having a muffin, talked about his old friend Colt Cabana, and talked about how they have not been friends for almost a decade, and how certain EVPs who couldn't manage a target spread lies about how he got someone fired, and how he has to work with children who were irresponsible and should have known better. Tony tried to cover it up and said, "I shouldn't have ignored the question. I should have taken it on like I did in Forbes." But what he should have done as a boss is cut Punk off and told Punk, "Hey, we're moving on from this. This is not the time to talk about this situation." Or he could have spoke up and said, "Despite rumors, or he should have said, CM Punk never came to me and told me to fire Scott Colton." But that was the rumor the Young Bucks and Adam Page were spreading about Punk. That he got someone fired when he didn't, and that he went into business for himself, when really it was Hangman who did it first, and was the real one who was unprofessional. From there, Punk did say, "What did I do in this world to have an empty-headed dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page go into business for himself and spread lies about me, who's never done a fucking thing in this business. Which again is true, Hangman has never done anything of note or significance in wrestling, and AEW would not have missed him if he was fired. Just like they would not have missed the Young Bucks if Tony had let them go for spreading lies about Punk. The two guys he truly misses, Tony that is Cody for not rolling over his contract. Even Uncle Dave, Tony's biggest defender, had to admit that. And of course, they miss CM Punk because he's the biggest star in the history of AEW. And Tony lost his biggest draw. Punk, like I said, went on to saying that he worked with children and how these people who butted in should have never been involved and should have minded their own fucking business and should have known better. And like I said, Tony should have either cut Punk off before it got to this point, or obviously disciplined the Young Bucks and maybe even stripped them of their EVP titles or fired them as well for spreading lies about their biggest star. Because again, what have the Young Bucks done that's significant in AEW? Outside of their initial run when the company was first getting going with them and Cody. The answer is nothing. So, from there, like I said, that's what Tony could have done. He had many chances to release, or at least, strongly discipline and suspend the guilty parties that led up to Brawl Out. Because after Punk did say at that press conference, he repeated, if you have a problem with me, come take it up with me. Let's fucking go. I know it was reported that the Bucks and Kenny and I guess Hangman did try to storm Punk's locker room, and a stool was thrown, punches were thrown, and they all had to sign lifetime NDAs about it. So clearly, it was a serious situation, and it seemed like the only mature one on that side of the Young Bucks camp with Hangman was Kenny Omega, from what we've heard. And it seemed like him and Punk were actually able to talk, and were both pretty professional about things, unlike the other guys. But if Tony had just done his job and fired Hangman after that first promo leading up to Double or Nothing, like I've said, and fired the Young Bucks after Brawl Out, because again, they're not detrimental to the success of the company. They've been killing the company, to be honest, and they're one of the reasons why AEW is in the shape it's in right now. Honestly, I think CM Punk would have been much more open to staying, especially after his initial return in 2023, when Collision started. And I don't think he would have had also the incident with the Young Bucks' good friend Jack Perry, who, Mr. Crimea River, was the final straw that led to CM Punk quitting AEW, and Tony, unfortunately, having to do the only thing that was left to do and fire Punk, because Punk had just had it there and didn't want to be there anymore anyways. And looking at the work now that Punk is doing in WWE and how hot that product is, and Punk being a huge reason for that, I think Tony would have to sit back and know that he made the wrong decision every single time, and not doing his job as the booker, leader, owner of the company, whatever you want to call him. Either way, though, he didn't act like a boss at all. He did not fire the men who deserved to be fired, and he did not preserve the top stars that could have kept AEW strong and kept it a hot product that it was at the time. So I know that this opinion is going to ruffle some feathers, especially if you're a fan of the Young Bucks or of the Elite or Hangman Adam Page supporter, and you're probably not going to agree with all my views. But I think that's what Tony should have done, and that's what he could have done to prevent all these issues from within the company. And I think that's how he could have stopped Brawl Out and that post-media scrum from Punk from happening. I think with Cody and Punk's still with the company and the Young Bucks and Adam Page gone, like I said, I think the company would be in much better shape than it is now. It'd still be maybe not as hot as it was 3 years ago, but it would still be definitely a hotter product than it is today. And you would have had Punk being able to work again with Bryan Danielson, someone he wanted to work with, You could have him work with Swerve, and you can eventually have Punk and Cody work together. And that promo they did, Punk and Cody did, to hype up the 2024 Royal Rumble that had people talking, could have and should have happened on AEW Dynamite instead. But because of Tony's inaction and the selfishness of their EVPs, it didn't. So that's where I'm going to leave it for now. Let me know what your thoughts on this. Let me know if you agree with my sentiments on where AEW is, my sentiments and my thoughts on Adam Page and the Young Bucks. And let me know if you look at things differently and see things in a different perspective, because I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on it. Again, thank you to my friend Kelly for this suggestion. It is a topic and something I've wanted to talk about for a while. I just knew my opinions, being, I'll be honest, obviously very pro-Punk, might obviously make some people disagree with me, and might have people thinking that I'm some anti-AEW guy, which I'm not. I was just a much bigger fan of the product when they had bigger stars. But I will say there are some things they're doing with the Hurt Syndicate and Swerve that I do enjoy watching, and that I do like that they're doing. So it's not all doom and gloom like I'm making it sound, like it was the night of Brawl Out 2022. So again, please comment down below and let me know other topics you'd want me to talk about. Let me know if you want me to talk about other things in AEW. Even though it's still a younger company, there's still things I could do videos on. And if you like this, please like and subscribe so you're always updated with the most recent content. And apologies for the delay with this video, but I will be back soon with episode 29 as well. So thank you again, everyone, for watching, and take care, guys. Have a good one.